Welcome to Gun Owners of America, State of the Second podcast. I'm Kailey.
And I'm John. And today we're joined by Daniel Peterson, who is the owner and operator of Cerberus LifeScan and Merlin. He helps over 860 FFLs with a ton of compliance and inventory while shaping the future of the firearms industry. I know I called you Daniel. You want to go by Dan. So Dan, how are you today?
I'm good. Appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to this.
Looking to upgrade your everyday carry? Langdon Tactical takes factory firearms and turns them into precision-built tools you can trust.
From world-class trigger jobs to complete custom packages, every detail is built for smooth, faster, and more accurate performance.
Known for the legendary LTT Beretta 92, Langdon Tactical sets the standard in custom handguns.
Trusted by professionals and enthusiasts alike, Langdon Tactical delivers more than upgrades. It delivers precision-built confidence.
Learn more at langdontactical.com and use code LTTGOA for $100 off orders over $1,000.
We're going to ask you 5 questions. You answer them how you see fit. Let's go ahead and go with, what do you watch more of when it comes to social media platforms? Do you watch more YouTube, Facebook, TikTok?
So I don't have TikTok installed, so I don't have any TikTok. So probably Facebook. I spend a lot of time actually for the business side. So in a bunch of FFL groups and chatter and message groups kind of stuff, and either helping and or promoting our product. So a little bit of YouTube, but that's about it.
What are your top 3 guns?
Top 3 guns. So my absolute favorite is I got a Remington 700 308 for long range. Last fall, I picked up a PTR 9K. That's a hell of a lot of fun. And then I got some Springfield XDs, so in 45.
What would be your go-to EDC?
The EDC, Springfield XDS in 45. So that's what I carry most days. So,
if you could make one firearm-related movie more accurate, which one would it be?
Oh man. I don't know if it's even worth it. We flew in yesterday and I watched a movie called Line of Fire. That was one of the most inaccurate train wreck of a thing, both from like law enforcement as well as firearm handling. It was, but I don't know if that movie is even worth saving. The story was bad. The writing was bad. You started it and it's like, I got another hour on the flight. I might as well watch this. But it was rough.
Yeah, I know that feeling. What is the next step in innovation for our industry?
I'm biased, so software side on some of this stuff, right? So a lot of the guys I talk to, both from FFL standpoint, as well as distributors, as well as industry, ATF type stuff, like some of that tech and software is lagging. Like it doesn't communicate very well. It's not up to modern standards of how the data flows a little bit. I was at this in August. There's kind of the buy group season. So talking some very large stores, some of those stores are still on, paper bound books and paper forms. And that's very interesting to me in the fact that you can do that much velocity with manual on all those things. Some of those stores have principal reasons to it, which I understand, but just from the velocity of some of the stuff, for example, the ATF does not have a method of doing a digital data flow APIs. So no matter what you do, you still have to push in and type in or get all the data into, let's say, the Form 4 or Form 3 type pieces. There's no receiver or endpoint that you can just push the information into. The FBI does. The FBI has their NICS system where you can actually do some of that. So it's a capability in the infrastructure, but it's not there across all the departments.
Go ahead and just give us a little bit of backstory of who you are, how you got into the industry, how this all started for you.
So 2016, so I used to run rental properties. I grew up working and mowing the lawn and fixing toilets in my dad's rental properties. That evolved into what we did as well and started doing some of that on the side. 2016, somebody broke into one of our 4 families and stole the copper pipes and left the water running. So that was awesome. So I got a little bitterness on that industry, sold everything. And then I currently have 25 years in the National Guard. So a lot of activity with that. And then the background with it, my wife also served as well. So it's like, well, the gun side of stuff is very appealing, familiar with it. Look through the process of getting our FFL, and we did. So also had a promise I was going to take her to Vegas every couple of years for SHOT Show. So so that promise was made, and it's been kept. And actually now we go every year. So
Overachiever.
so we got into the gun side of stuff, and then actually the first 2017 went out to SHOT Show, talked to actually the Dead Air booth, and got a good information and instruction on the NFA side of stuff. Approached them, said, hey, I'm home-based. I have no idea what I'm doing. I can barely spell this acronym. Tell me all about it. And they spent like 40 minutes walking me through what it is, how it works, what cans I should stock, what the process kind of looked like. And that's how I got into it. So I was still working full-time as an engineer, manager, product line type stuff, all the way through IT. And then trying to optimize that time from like 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So I started working on some software stuff behind the scenes to help with the forms. And that's what started Cerberus as the origin started there. I started to do that and working through making the PDF forms, being able to scan a driver's license and help populate the Form 4. Back then it was all paper, and then you still had to roll prints. And I was trying to figure out how do I do this faster, just so I could get more throughput. I went from like an hour and a half a form to like an hour a form, and then I still had to handle the fingerprints, and it was cumbersome. So I actually saved up and got some cash put aside, and I was going to buy a kiosk from Silencer Shop, and called out, started going through the process of doing it, and basically was told, we don't want guys like you. We don't want home-based dealers. We want retail shops where we can drive business to. And I had recently just actually bought as distribution from them, because they offer multiple facets, right? They have a distribution side, they have a retail side type stuff. So I'm like, I just bought cans from you. What do you mean you don't want me? And they're like, well, yeah, it's fine. You can be a distributor and a dealer for us, but we don't want to sell you a kiosk because you're home-based. I handled that very poorly, so I built my own. So I researched exactly what the product was that they use, the scanner right there that we have. I picked the same hardware, worked through the software development side of stuff, and then took about 2.5 years, and we launched Cerberus in September of 21. Went to SHOT Show in 22, a couple months later with like 12 customers. Today I stand at about 875, closing in at 900. So it's been an awesome response from the industry. It's a software that works. It makes sense. It actually gets it down to the lowest, like the clerk retail level, because of how we have how it works through the software, scan the driver's license, and then it'll prompt you of what's missing. So it gets it down to that level that's really easy to make it efficient and fast. And then as I started doing more retail sales, I got frustrated flipping through a dozen or so websites, and then that's where Merlin came from. So I figured out a way to plug in and wire and connect to all the distributors. Right now we have about 25 data feeds we can pull into. So it basically puts all of industry on one screen for the FFL, so they can find inventory, they can find pricing, and they can order from 15 of those right now today. So it's a nice. Both of them work hand in hand a little bit. They're separate softwares, but they do work together. So, and then actually I left full-time work about 1.5 years ago. So March of last year I left my W-2 work, and I've been doing this now full-time ever since. And it's basically me, my bride. I got 3 daughters, 2 of which are in college, so they don't really help a whole lot. But when they're back, they help out. I have a customer success guy out of Gage. He's amazing, out of Missouri. So he handles a lot of the installation and training and whatnot. And then Erica, who actually, as of filming today, is with us 1 year. She handles a lot of the A&D stuff for us for the retail side, as well as some invoicing and stuff. And she's also amazing. So that's the business. That's it.
Oh, that's quite a success story. So I'm sure you guys get a lot of questions from dealers, FFLs, but also just every day people who look at technology and the innovation that happens there as also a potential security risk. And so how do you mitigate that? How do you keep customer data secure, and what kind of sets you apart in that regard?
So the data for us is all stored locally. So it's all stored. It's locally on the computer or on those servers. The FFL has the option to delete that data if they wish. So there are some customers that say, I don't want my stuff kept. So they will save the client, submit the form for or handle whatever they're going to do, and then it can delete the client right there. Everything is encrypted at the local level. So that's the other big piece from us versus the largest, so from Silencer Shop. Theirs is all cloud-based. So that customer data is, sent from the store to the cloud, and then it's shared between all the Silencer Shop dealers as well. So it's a pro con, right? All the dealers have access to it, but on the flip side, all the dealers have access to it. So somebody could walk into one store and then the customer, shop across the street, could utilize that same data. With Cerberus, it's all stored locally. So
Now, coming out with like a new software like this, there's some hurdles, there's some pushback from some of the older generation. What have you seen? What are some of the success stories? Where have you seen the feedback from the customer base, from at least the FFL side?
The FFL side has been monstrous. I mean, we don't do much for marketing and or advertising, so a lot of it is referrals and word of mouth type pieces, as well as the trade show activity. So, we have weekly, daily, actually, I get calls from, hey, I saw your stuff at so and so. They think it's great. Tell me more about it from the FFL standpoint. At GOA, actually, the Goals Summit this summer, I had 4 customers come up to the booth and say, my FFL uses your stuff. It's awesome. That was cool. That was really cool. So like I question a little bit about going to the GOA type show because it's more consumer facing, right? I sell to gun stores, so it's a B2B sale. But I'm there. I usually see some customers. I usually get a couple leads out of it. But that was really cool seeing consumers come up and say, "Hey, I recognize that logo. My FFL uses your stuff. It's really cool." One of the biggest conversations that we actually have is education of like what's legal, right? From the consumer standpoint, right? Can I use it? I didn't think I could. What's the application process look like? And that's one thing we as an industry, I think, are failing a little bit is on that education of how do we get that better word out. We try, but it doesn't seem it's sticking. The guys who know, but the general community, even in Wisconsin, has been legal to hunt with for a long time. I still get the question of, oh, I thought those were illegal. Can you hunt with those things? Like, what do you use it for? It's just so those type conversations. And then there's also a lot of education on the industry standpoint too. What does the process look like? What does it take to be able to sell them? What do I need from a compliance standpoint? What do I need for a paperwork standpoint or record retention standpoint? And a lot of that, it's available, but it's in the NFA handbook, which is 300 some pages long. It's in the Federal Registry. It's not in an easy, packageable, digestible format. So we spent a lot of time, me and Gage spent a lot of time educating on, hey, here's what the process looks like. Here's what it should look like. And actually, I recorded a small series of podcasts to do some of that as well. A little bit of self-defense and the fact that I was answering the same question over and over again. So I just filmed it. And now I point guys to that. So it's kind of an NFA 101 type piece. Like, hey, here's how you get your special occupation tax. By the way, this is what it means. It's not prorated, et cetera, et cetera. Once you have it, then do this. And then what are the form types and those type of things. So trying to do those things to educate it as well as take a little burden off of me and my team.
So you started all this because you saw an issue. You came up with a solution. What made you come up? So we talked about Cerberus first. Let's talk about Merlin. What made you decide to go into Merlin to pull those feeds?
Frustration, honestly. So I got to a point where it was hard. I started to not quote some of the custom orders that were coming in because it was a pain to find everything, right? Right now, for the most guys, they are flipping through, between 8 or 4 and a dozen web tabs to find an item. So you walk in and say you want the latest and greatest. Most guys will go to those first 3 or 4 primary distributors that they go to, and they won't find it. And they'll be like, oh, I can't get it, sorry. But I'll put you on the list when it comes across, or I get a phone call from my rep, we'll put it in. Merlin now can pull all those things. And sometimes there's smaller or different distributors that you may not always want to go into or always routinely go into, and it'll pop up and show it as available. So it gives the FFL an edge to be able to find inventory as well as to service and satisfy the customer on those pieces. But really, I got sick and tired of flipping through 6, 8, 10 websites. And then, they'd log out, and then each one has their own protocol for searching. sometimes the leading zero on the UPC, sometimes not. Sometimes you have to search by model number. Like, it just, every website is a little bit different, and it became irritating. And it got to a point where if I didn't find it in the first like 3 or 4 distributors, I'd be like, can't get it.
So from a company standpoint, from a brick and mortar standpoint, this is the ability to not lose out on those sales. Because like you said, the frustration of digging through, I know just from a consumer standpoint, when you're trying to find something, you have to go through 4 or 5 websites.
Right.
It drives you nuts. So I can see how it is for the FFLs. On
I mean, the analogy that I give to explain to somebody is like kayak. Like, if you're booked a flight on kayak, it's kind of that similar deal. Put in what you're looking for. It gives you a whole bunch of options, and then you can go pick the one you want. Now, whether you book it right from there, Merlin can do that. You can order from inside of Merlin, or take it back to the distributor's webpage and put the order in. It's kind of a similar concept on it. From talking to the small guys, it gives them the ability to see a bunch of inventory. We can feed 25, and 10 of which Merlin has a global feed, so they can just turn on. The other 15, they need credentials with those vendors or distributors. But it gives some of the smaller guys access to a lot of things out the gate. And then they can kind of pick and choose which ones they want to add. So that's an advantage for the littler guys. The big guys, how they're using it is they'll put it on 4 or 5 computers up front. And then the sales guys can quote and talk to the consumer or customer and say, yeah, we can get that. Put it on, a spreadsheet or something, and then the buyer in the back can go through and say, okay, UPC, quantity 2, order, right? And work through that way. The other one, there are numerous POSs or point of sale systems that have the ability to auto order overnight as you sell stuff, or weekly, whatever the frequency is. But they typically will kick out. It doesn't usually find everything, so it'll be a kick out list in the morning. Well, those stores are taking that kickout list, dumping it into Merlin, and then finding the ones that didn't fulfill. So it's an efficiency piece. It's a cost savings piece. You can find who's got the lowest price and the best quantities, as well as some of the shipping terms. So it works out for the FFL as an advantage on that.
I realize that there are many choices when it comes to who you choose for your cell phone service, and there are new ones popping up all of the time. But here's the truth.
You won't find another cell phone service provider that does more to defend our Second Amendment right to bear arms than Patriot Mobile.
For more than 12 years, Patriot Mobile has been on the front lines fighting for our God-given rights and freedoms, while also providing exceptional nationwide cell phone service with access to all 3 of the main networks. Don't just take my word for it. Ask one of the hundreds of thousands of Americans who have made the switch and are now supporting causes they believe in simply by joining Patriot Mobile.
Switching is easier than ever. Activate in minutes from the comfort of your own home. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade.
Patriot Mobile's all U.S.-based support team is standing by to take care of you. Call 972-PATRIOT today or go to patriotmobile.com/GOA. Use the promo code GOA for a free month of service and 15% off every line. That's patriotmobile.com/GOA or call 972-PATRIOT and make the switch today. All right, so it's time for our segment From the Soapbox. It's where we go into the spicier side of the conversations and get some hot takes. So for you and seeing the innovation coming from the technology side, what is your hot take on what is next for the industry?
I mean, things that I would like to see as it goes through, especially on the NFA side of stuff, right? The Form 3s should be or need to be an immediate approval, right? The Form 3 is a transaction between licensees. It's a database check. It should be immediate. Why it takes 2 or 3 days at this point, I don't understand. And it just kind of slows things down with a little bit of bureaucracy. So right now, if a manufacturer or distributor, they'll put it in today. You have to put in the license of who it's going to. So full FFL, SOT or EIN number, and then license category. And there's a check button on there, and it pulls it. And then you pick the inventory. Why that's not an immediate piece, I don't understand that. I also would like to see an API type piece where we can speed up the Form 4 process. So it can be a data push as opposed to right now it's about 9 screens of data that's got to get put in. They're small screens, but it's still address, date of birth, pick the firearm, Clio type stuff. It's all got to get filled in. All that stuff we should be able to push in. The FBI's got the eNICS type system where you can actually plug into that and push in the NICS background checks as an API or data link. Why the Form 4 can't get that way, I don't understand. As well as why it's not a multiple serial number item. On a Form 3, the transfer from dealer to dealer, industry transfers, it can be hundreds, if not thousands of items. A Form 4 is a single item. So there's a waste and bureaucracy that happens. You have to do a background check every time. They are trying or state that they are doing batch and bulk approvals off of Social Security number, but it's an individual form per serial number. So it just slows things down, and it's just more friction and bureaucracy to it.
It should, he's right. It should auto, for Form 3s, it should auto, and same thing with Form 4. Form 4 should just be like a 4473, where all you can put on a 4473, you can have as many guns
Correct.
as you want on there. Should be the same process.
Correct.
It should be able to auto calculate. And now I know as of this filming, we still have the tax stamp, quote unquote, the $200. We'll have the $0 coming in January, but it should be the same thing. It should just be, okay, this is $0, or hey, there's this many items. This is how much in tax stamps you owe. And it's just insane that bureaucracy has to slow up the process. And we have seen now from your side, are you seeing an increase in the speed of approvals?
So I mean, this time last year, I think it was, ATF went to kind of a batch type approval on some stuff, or batch push over to NICS. So they are collecting the data, pushing it over to the FBI. The FBI is doing a batch return back to it. So the digital Form 4s, for the most part, are coming back in 3 to 4 days, which is awesome. Like, it used to be 9 months at some point, a couple years ago, right? So now it's coming back in 3 or 4 days. Trusts are coming back in about the same time, 5 to 7 days type piece. But then you flip that around, the paper stuff is still 3 to 4 months. And the paper stuff matters for secondary sales and private party sales. So if you owned a NFA item and you wanted to sell it, you do a paper Form 4 because there's no way to do it on the eForms system. That also could be a method of change as well. I don't know if they'll ever get there with that, because right now, from the FFL standpoint, it is tied. The inventory of the FFL is tied to the FFL number and their EIN. Even as a sole proprietor, you have to have an EIN number to be able to transact on NFA.
Speaking of the $0 tax stamp, and Kailey, you can cut me off if you don't like this. Speaking of that, what do you think is going to limit the freedoms of people to get these products once that zero? Because we're going to see this wave of people wanting to get NFA items because the tax stamp's down to zero. Do you think that this will overburden their system? Is there a way, or where will we see people?
Without a doubt. So it's twofold. It's going to be a supply demand piece, right? So ammunition back in like 2020, 2021, right? There's only so much supply out there. Demand is going to increase. It's going to open the market, I believe, to the lower end or lower cost items. Individuals that didn't want to spend $800 on a can plus $200 on a tax stamp are now going to be interested in, well, I can spend $600 if I can get something out the door. Okay, great. There's products that are out there that can do that. I think rimfire is going to explode in demand as well, because that's somewhere between $250 and $450 or so for a product. So it's an easy slice, and now it's not 50% of or 100% the cost of the item plus the tax stamp, right? So I think the rimfire side, and then also the lower cost, like center fire 5.56 type cans, the demand is gonna explode. eForms today can barely keep up with the overall demand and the load on that server. So January 1st is going to be a train wreck. And how fast they can respond to that, I don't know. There's some good people that are trying and working and making some changes, but I don't know if they have the means or the budget, or in some cases the will to make the changes to make it faster. Again, you go back to like the Form 4 being a single item. If you could put 2 or 3 items on there, how much of the server load goes away, how much of the processing goes away, because you already have Everything is done. You're just adding one more, as opposed to a brand new transaction.
Yeah, I mean, I know of at least 20 people who are going to buy 3 or 4 cans.
Right.
So you're talking 3 or 4 cans. It's 4 different forms. Multiply that by millions of people. That server is just going to.
Well, and compound it, like there's many stores are doing like a layaway program right now. Buy it today, we'll submit it on January 1st because the customer wants to save the $200 in the tax stamp. So not only do you have new demand coming January 1st, you already have pent up demand that's waiting to go in because guys are pre-selling it and waiting for it to be submitted. And then on top of that, private party sales, I think, are going to kick off too. So say you bought something that just you didn't like, too much blowback, whatever, and you're going to sell it to a friend, like that's going to be a paper form for it. And after January 1st, it won't be a tax stamp, but it's still going to be a paper form. You're also going to have, I think, numerous people that will fix, quote unquote fix. They bought it as an individual, but now they realize a trust might be a good scenario for how their life is. Husband, wife, father, son, father, whatever, right? You can on the trust, you can effectively share the items between the trustees, whoever as a responsible person. So they're going to move it from an individual into a trust. That also is a paper form. So you're going to have secondary sales that will take off. You're going to have the trust moving stuff into a trust is going to take off, and then on top of that, new demand for I believe a new segment of buyers that were either priced out or didn't want to pay the $200 tax stamp. That's all going to come together in this neat little perfect storm. And yes, I don't think there's any way they're going to keep up.
Yeah, you are hitting the nail on the head. This is the same thing I've been saying. We're going to see this spike like this, and then it's going to be a race to whoever can make the cheapest can first to catch up.
Well, yeah, and the other piece, like what's good enough, right?
Yeah.
What's good enough on the can and the solution? Right now, we basically have generational product in the marketplace. High-end titanium, no question asked, lifetime service on these suppressors because it's $200, a burdensome process, and guys just don't want to deal with it. Do you need that when it's not $200 per item? Do you need a lifetime warranty on it? Maybe it becomes a 1-year manufacturer weld type service warranty, but if you don't screw it on right and you strike a baffle, that's on you. I don't know. I don't have the answer for that, but you're going to start getting a bunch of what's good enough for a can. You look at like the European market, it is poor form not to shoot with some form of a suppressor, but they only last a season or two because of the material that's used, because they're a muzzle device. They're $60, $80 over there. Like, use it, throw it away, buy another one. Not a big deal. So like, what does that look like to the marketplace, and who's going to bring that product? For the last couple of years, a ton of technology has gone into the suppressor market, 3D printing, alternate materials, alternate designs, and it's advancing. And that's a concern I have too, is that if we can't move some of these things up market and there's not the money there to do the research and the tech, what's going to happen to it? Is it just going to become a muzzle device, which it kind of is, but but I mean, it's what it is. So I'm curious what that looks like and how that goes. It's going to be an interesting time for the next couple of years. And, plus with the lawsuits that are present, like, because there's no tax being paid, the verbiage is a reduced tax, but is there still a tax? And so how's that going to shake out? And it's going to be interesting what happens the next couple of years on those cases too, to effectively gut the NFA on the registry for the NFA items.
Yeah, I mean, the only court case that was able to stand and why the NFA has lasted so long is because they referenced the tax component.
Correct.
And they said, hey, because of this tax, this law is legal. The minute that went down to zero, we got a lot of flack for working to get it down to zero. We were working for a full
Correct.
abolishment of the NFA. But when that was very clear that was not going to happen, we had a choice to make. Do we jump on what everybody else was saying of, let's do a $50 tax? Well, no, we need grounds to sue.
Right.
And so we went down to and advocated for the $0 tax so that we could launch the lawsuit,
Right.
which is exciting, because the NFA is unconstitutional. And I think that all of us in this room agree that, a right delayed is a right denied, and you shouldn't have to go through this entire background check system and go through all of these additional forms and all of this additional bureaucracy for something that we have the constitutional right for anyway.
Well, and plus, like, you look at some of the minutia of this too, right? You look at a pistol braced or 5.56 AR, and if you add a vertical grip, now it is a SBR. Like, it's just.
Don't get me started on that.
And if you look at a suppressor, how is that classified as a firearm? There is no mechanisms to dispel a projectile. It is effectively a muzzle device. So there's things that, yes. Yes. But also, and to hit on some piece, and I know you guys have covered this before too, but like, the one big beautiful bill as a reparation bill is a budget bill. So, trying to get it stripped out, that means it was going to be difficult to get through the Senate on the bird and policy, right? So the 0 was about the best that could happen on that budget bill because it would be the tax change on it. But yeah, I'm very curious how it goes forward. And I think it's going to take, unfortunately, it's probably going to take a couple of years to bounce through all the courts, just the way the process works. But I think it's got a good chance of sticking if it can go. So
you probably hear the same criticisms anytime that there is a talk of technology kind of entering the chat, so to speak, in the industry, because people are, I think, rightfully concerned of the government having their de facto registry. It wasn't very long ago that we uncovered over or close to 1 billion records of out-of-business dealers that the ATF was illegally keeping. So how, from a software standpoint, are you able to help protect people's data, and what solutions are FFLs looking for to make sure that that the data of their customer base is secure? I know there's a lot of people out there that firmly believe that paper is the only way to go
Sure.
for that security. So how would you address those concerns?
So twofold on it, right? So the benefit of the software is that we can build in the rules to protect both the consumer and the FFL, right? If you look back at the previous administration's zero tolerance, right? Any error on any form would be grounds to strip and pull a license. So that fear is there from the business owner standpoint. So the softwares help with that monstrously. For the most, like in Cerberus, as you're working through it, you can't save a customer as you're working through a new customer piece without having the information in the right spots. Some of the 4473 type paperwork and digital bound books, similar deal. Like, you cannot do a prohibited transaction. You cannot incorrectly fill out the form because it won't let you go forward with it. So that protects the FFL and the business from ensuring that they can stay in business and they can still offer that service to the community, because numerous FFLs, in the past 4 years or so had lost their licenses. I'm talking a very minor error, a day difference on a transfer. The 4473 is good for a very small or a set period of time, and if it was 1 day past that, illegal transfer, and they would lose their license. So those things, the software enables that. From the consumer standpoint, I mean, our software on Cerberus is all done locally and stored locally. It's encrypted and stored on the computer or the devices that are in the FFL. It doesn't go to the cloud. The only time it touches and transacts with the internet is when it fills the form into the eForm website. From the registry side of stuff, the warehouses of all the records, like I've seen the inefficiencies of the ATF, and I cannot imagine that they would have the ability to actually do much with it, but the risk is there, right? And that's where sometimes we have to push back on it and say, is this needed? There's requirements on the digital bound books for access from the ATF that has to be granted by the FFL. So there's controls on all that too, when they can see it, when they have access to it, when they're doing the audits, right? To ensure that the FFL is following the rules and the compliance side of stuff and the records are being properly kept. The other side of it is, we push to change the lifetime requirement on the forms. Like what's some of the purpose of having, I think it's 20 years at this point from out of business, or FFLs have to keep, I think it's 20 years we have to keep records, and then when out of business we can surrender those records to the ATF and the warehouse. To what point, right? What is the benefit of having that volume of information, and how often is it even used, and at what cost as well, right?
20. I didn't know it was 20 years. I thought it was 5.
Unless that's recently changed. The last time I looked at, so if you are in business, you have to keep, I believe, you have to keep it for 20 years.
That's insane.
And so, again, like it's going to come back to, well, this one time it did something, but at the same token, I don't know. It's a massive burden on the FFLs, especially anybody doing volume, right? So that also then becomes the reason why they go digital, because they don't have to keep all the paper forms anymore. They can keep a digital record of it, and you don't have to have rooms full of forms or pay for storage of these forms, because that's the requirement currently in the Federal Registry.
I'm still dumbfounded that it's 20 years. Because for some reason I thought it was 5, and then you could send them, I think it was West Virginia, and they would get destroyed?
Out of business, the only one I know you can surrender and submit.
What would you say to the FFLs? Because Kailey brought up we have the digital side. What would you say to the FFLs that still believe that the paper's the only way to go?
There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. I have numerous customers that are on the paper side, either from they're too small to want to do the digital side, or inversely, they want to protect their customer and client's data. They don't want it digitally. It happens both ways. The problem is, or the issue is that compliance standpoint. A paper form can be filled out any which way that they wish to. So the burden then is on the FFL to ensure that their clerks and that their employees are trained so they know how to do the forms correctly, and that there's not errors or issues with the forms. There's nothing wrong with it. I actually still do paper forms. We have retail sales. We're a small operation. The software is much bigger from the standpoint of overall revenue, but I still do paper forms. Now,
as a firearms community, because this is my concern with the digital stuff. We see all this time, all the time now, data breaches. We see all this. What is the concern of then? How strong do you think the NIC system is, and all these all these digital bound books, that if there is even a chance of having a data breach, because that is not only personal data, but then now they know how many firearms you purchased, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, some of it, you go back to the target of opportunity, right? If someone is going to invest time hacking on a system, like what are they going to chase? If I were a hacker, I would chase the credit card side of stuff. I would chase large retail operations, right? Because you have credit card data that you can do something with. You can make new accounts and or transact against it. The data that is stored, like, say, Fastbound, for example, there's not much that actually is stored on that system. Name, address, email, for the most part, on the Fastbound side. Yes, the transactions are there. So you could come back and back in to that with the serial numbers and whatnot. So that is a concern. They have very good security and state-of-the-art methodologies on it. But again, a lock only keeps the honest people out, right? If somebody wants it bad enough, they can get into any system for the most part. So you do your due diligence on it to secure the data, to scramble the data, to encrypt the data, whatever, to make it difficult. But if somebody wants it bad enough, they can probably get it. And that goes for anything. So the data breaches on the government side, I don't know. I would be more concerned on the IRS data breach than I would be on the registry side of stuff. But because the damage that could be done on the money side is, I think, greater. And that's where a criminal, I think, would chase that more. Now, somebody could hack into it for political means, right? And use that against somebody. But I assume most criminal organizations are money motivated, so they're going to chase what has the best opportunity so that they can transact into cash.
Makes sense. Now, we're almost wrapping up, but I want to ask you, what is your spicy take? Because Kate's given hers. Do you have a spicy take that you want to?
I mean, I've hit on a couple pieces of it. I'm an engineer by trade, so like efficiency and redundancy irritate the hell out of me. So that's where some of these things have come from. Actually, I'll say two. So one is what I've hit on already. So like the ability for the ATF to accept the data packets would be monstrous. Multiple synonyms on a Form 4 would be great, especially for this demand swell of what's coming. So the other spicy take, and I'll take a shot. Talked to Travis over at Silencer Shop a long time ago, and he made a comment about, there's room for both of us in the industry and et cetera. So my question back is, if there's room for all of us, why do they not accept digital fingerprint files? You have to go to a kiosk or you have to mail in prints. And I'm sure it's going to be a quality control type jargon piece, but Silencer Shop should be able to accept any EFT from anywhere, or if the customer wants the EFT, why can't they buy it? That's my spicy take on it.
Dan, go ahead and, we're going to wrap this up. Go ahead and just pitch your company.
Okay.
Talk about things, just what the future hold for you guys, all that stuff.
So Peterson Farms is our FFL side of stuff. I'm an 07, 02 out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So in the industry, I've been selling and have my FFL since 2016. Created two products. One is Cerberus Live Scan. So it's a digital fingerprinting solution for NFA systems. Turnkey system, do Form 4s, do paper Form 4s, can print fingerprint cards. All the data stores locally at the FFL. So they control it. They also control the process. So for the most part, you should be able to, a customer can walk in and scan a driver's license, roll their fingerprints, about 10 minutes, take a photo, about 10 minutes, take that data to eForms and submit that form in about 10 minutes, and then run the customer through their point of sale systems and get checked out. So in that 30-minute appointment, the customer can get their profile created, a form submitted. They have a receipt from the FFL. They have a receipt from the ATF saying the form has been submitted, and now it's on the ATF's clock, starting that 2 or 3 day process. Competition standpoint, a lot of times it takes that same process is more like 3 to 5 days just to get it through their back end and the form submittal process. So it's a little bit slower. The other side is we don't charge per transaction. So the other guys will charge per form submitted as a marketing or service fee. We don't charge for that. I make money on selling the hardware system, and we have an annual maintenance that goes with it. So that's how I get paid on the Cerberus side. Merlin is a search tool for the FFL to find inventory, both pricing and inventory, and also order from. Right now, we can search from 25 different data feeds of distributors and vendors, and then order from 15 of those inside of it. Some of those guys don't have the ability to order. Some I just haven't got around to building out and finalizing the build and connection. I write the code, so if you're a Ramsey guy, I'm the chief everything officer of this. So there's times where I bounce between the two softwares and work on that. What's coming up? Merlin in Q4 here, I'm going to begin to move to a cloud platform and mobile. So I think iPad, think iPhone, think whatnot. Right now it's all Windows based. It installs locally on the FFL's computers for speed. I chose that methodology so I didn't have network and data lag. Everything runs on their computer. So it's wicked fast, but it's got to be installed on each computer they want to use it on, which is allowed. The licensing allows for per site as many as they want. But one of the biggest pushes or requests that I get is, can I put it on my iPad? Think gun shows type stuff. They want it mobile. They want it handy. I find it irritating when I'm on the road or traveling. Somebody will text me like, hey, can you get a blank? And it's like, let me bust out my laptop. And so I'm going to put it on. I'm going to try to get it on the iOS and Android and iPads. So that's what's coming. And then I have a secondary product that's a derivative of LiveScan, more for the LE side of stuff. The first target's going to be Arkansas. that is going to be for their concealed carry permits, for teachers, for doctors, lawyers, all that kind of stuff. They have to do digital submission inside of Arkansas. That's a part of their harvester program. We are actually, the software is already qualified into Arkansas's harvester program. I just got to finish button up the last couple things on it. And then that'll also be a revamp and rework of Cerberus with a different user interface and a cleaner look and a little bit more user-friendly. So
That is awesome. Well, before we go, we have our gift for our guests brought to you by Palmetto State Armory and AAC Ammo. So they will be sending you something for being on the show with us.
Thank you.
So thank you again, Palmetto and AAC, for doing that.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode of State of the Second. If you have not, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a 5-star review. Those are always super helpful on all of the podcasting platforms. It feels weird not being able to push you guys to come see us at Goals 2025. But we have announced that we will be in Des Moines, Iowa for Goals 2026, August 1st and 2nd. And we will see you in Des Moines.
I will be there. I'm a vendor again back there. So.
Yes.
It's corn. Thanks, guys, for watching. We'll catch you next time.